Here with Aaron. Welcome to the Borealis show, and thank you so much for tuning in again. Today we will be talking, I will be talking, not we, with Aaron about addiction, mental health, and also address like some relationship, dating topics. Let's see how our conversation goes. Or if Aaron decides to run away after 5 minutes. Last week I was talking about how important it is to keep an open mind, especially if you live in a small city like Lethbridge or even like a smaller village. We tend to put people into boxes and to keep them in these boxes. And I asked you to choose at least one person and to approach her or him with new glasses and give them a chance to see them in a different light. Today I want to talk about how powerful we are as an individual. Like, even if you lose all your money in this world, even if you lose all your friends and family, the one thing that I believe makes you still a very powerful unit in this system is how you make others feel. We can destroy each other. I'm sure a lot of people have gone through heartbreak or rough patches with their family. But you can also support and help and even heal people. And I hope that you will never forget about this, because you don't need a degree to have that effect on a person, on your neighbor or someone you never met before, a stranger. And just know how unique you are as an individual and how powerful you are. And that's my message for this week.
It's a good message.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I met Aaron twice in my life. Once we were just, I think he was waiting for his girlfriend, and we didn't even really talk, maybe said hi, and then I started talking to his girlfriend. And the second time we were playing games. We were playing, how's this game called?
Cards Against Humanity.
Cards Against Humanity, yeah.
Educational stuff.
Very educational. And those were the only 2 times that I really saw Aaron. But there's something about you that tells me that you are in a really good place right now. You come across as very confident, and when I see you with your girlfriend, you seem to have a very warm and loving relationship that functions well, and you have good communication. She's sitting right here, by the way, so if you catch us looking into that direction, it's because she has such a gorgeous smile. So you seem to be in a solid place right now. You have a really interesting job, which you will talk about in a little bit.
Sure.
But I can also tell that you had to work your way through to this point where you're at. And you're maybe not done. You maybe not feeling as if you are this solid and confident, but that's how you come across. And my first question to you would be, did you have to go through tough times in order to be where you are today? Really tough times? Or, did you?
Honestly, I think the difficulties in life are what shapes us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hardships that people have to go through are what make them the strong individuals that they are, and I'm the same. You know, I've had to go through a lot to sort of be weathered into this person who was finally able to look at themselves and know that, you know, I was heading down a path that was my own addictions. You know, I'm an addictions counselor now, and I was struggling with my own addictions back then, and how things have completely flipped on their head, you know, how things have totally changed. You talk about relationships and, you know, what is beauty and all of these things. And I've been trying to find not only relationships, but beauty for myself, you know, to understand that I'm worthy, that I'm lovable, that I'm deserving of these things, just because I've been through, you know, difficulties in my life. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're not worth something, right? And I think that's sort of what you were alluding to, but we just put people into boxes because we sort of judge the appearance of things. We sort of look at somebody and say, you know, you don't have what it takes to be a person with value, and I think that's such a horrible thing, you know.
Oh, so it is very, very cruel, yeah, because isolation is what can really kill us, right? Not it is proven. Like, if you don't give a baby the attention it needs, then it will eventually die.
Yeah.
Same as not giving it food or water and shelter. Like, isolation is like a really hard pill to swallow.
That's honestly, if you want to talk about hardships, that's where I come from, is, you know, just neglect, abuse, trauma, you know, not coming from a place of nurturance and acceptance. Some of those things were in place later on in my life, but from the very beginnings of what I can remember, it was struggle. You know, I was living with people with their own addiction issues, with mental health issues, with just family dynamic systems that weren't, you know, the right sort of environment for a child to develop and grow. And I'm only realizing now as an adult that I've had to go back and sort of rewire my own brain, right?
Yeah.
So,
in order to make peace, or in order to be able to move on, like make peace
both.
and move on, yeah.
All of it, right? Like, I guess it would be a good time to sort of jump back and to just tell you a little bit about where I come from, because
I'd love that.
It sort of paints, well, of
Yeah.
course, yeah, and it's not an easy thing to talk about, but I have done a lot of processing, so I don't mind sharing.
Yeah.
But no, I grew up in a home with two parents who struggled with addiction. I don't know when that set in for them. I don't know much about either of their upbringings because of, you know, the way things sort of took place. But my dad died when I was 4 of a heroin overdose, and so just that in and of itself is enough to sort of disturb somebody's life forever, right? If you're not going to work on the things that caused, you know, the mental health issues, just the stress overall, if you're not going to work on those things, then you're going to be in for a lifetime of trouble. And I think that's why we see a lot of difficulties for people. But for me, growing up without a father, I've only come to realize what that means to me now, more so. I didn't understand how much of a loss that truly was to me. I sort of floated by without really taking the time to think about what it meant growing up without my dad. So he passed away when I was 4. I lived with my mom in Winnipeg after he passed away, and she was struggling with her own addiction issues, a lot of drinking, partying, bringing men around. Like, it was a constant party in our house, and I had no stability. I had no idea where the next meal was even going to come from. I'd be scraping pennies together back in the day when there was pennies to be had. Getting pennies and change together to be able to go buy milk for me and my little sister. So it was, you know, you talk about child development in terms of how the brain develops and why these things are so connected. I really didn't have a chance growing up. So I'm having to go back and to do the work now, which is interesting because I'm not only doing the work personally for myself, but I'm doing the work in terms of professionally growing, right? And just understanding new things and, reading just all sorts of information that you otherwise wouldn't have had. So it helps me understand myself better in a way.
Yeah.
So it's been a blessing for me to sort of have the childhood I did, although it's not something I would wish for anybody to go through. But it's the things that have shaped me. Like I said right at the beginning, I think the storm that I endured is what shaped me into the man I am. So I think that's maybe what you were seeing the time we played Cards Against Humanity, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I hope that I have, that people look and see that this is a real human being who's been through real struggle, fighting to be authentic and to be vulnerable. And, I'm a little red and my emotions show on my sleeve. I don't want to hide things, although, like you were saying, we put people into boxes. I feel like I've been in a box and I'm trying to sort of escape that now. So this is an interesting opportunity for me to do that.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'm grateful that you, took this. Did you say taking an opportunity? Yeah, that you took the chance. And what I also respect a lot is that you, through your own process, you learn a lot about yourself. But you help people directly because you work with addicts and you can probably relate and connect with them on a way deeper level than any person who studied 10 years knows all the facts and what leads to addiction. You maybe have been, were you addicted at some point to some substance too? Okay, so you went through the whole thing.
I'm still struggling
and
with
you're
addiction.
Still struggling, but that makes you wanna maybe even relate with people who are still struggling because you know you can help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they must be so grateful, and the city must be so grateful to have you because you help them on a very deep level, and not only for a short period of time, and on a more sustainable
sometimes level. It doesn't necessarily feel that way, but the work is unfortunately never ending in a lot of ways. The work is, sometimes you can finish your work and say, hey, I'm going home for the weekend. The work in my field is never really done.
No, because you connect so deeply with them. And
for sure, there's endless amounts of potential for people, and I hope that even sparking somebody's ability to see that there's more to life than the suffering that they've sort of been put into that box, right? That's sort of the theme I'm going off of. But I think people take on the narrative of, this is my identity, this is who I am. So if I can come in and just remind people that they're human, that I'm human, that we're no different, and that suffering and struggle, that's life, right? Like we're all going through the difficulties, some to a different varying degree on the spectrum. I think suffering is, you see what people are really going through, and I have the privilege of really just in the work in the 6-7 years I've been in the field, being able to share with numerous individuals. So I'm just grateful to be able to share that opportunity with them and for them to open up and be vulnerable with me, and to show them that I'm also trying to do the same thing in moments like this, or with my friends, or with the people I come across. So it's powerful stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. How was school for you? Did you go to primary school, high school, through all that? How was that?
Coming up, after my dad passed away, I moved to the city with my mom, Winnipeg. I was sort of tossed in school. My mom was in an abusive relationship, and so I would come home and she would be, black eyes, beaten up, she'd be drinking, she'd be using, and I was sort of the parental role. So school for me wasn't always this, this happy place, the social connections that you're looking for in terms of a young kid and making friends. But that was sort of my earliest memories of school, was not being there. So I never really took school all that seriously. Being adopted after my mom passed away, I was tossed into a full French school. I didn't know French. My family on my dad's side was bilingual, and they obviously wanted me to get into just my roots and to have, French as a second language. But yeah, it was really, really difficult. And so I struggled early on with maintaining just being at school, around people and teachers that I didn't trust, around, coming up in my life. It was just constant struggle. So school was no better. I would struggle at school just as much. So, so the early days of school were, not great. University, the first 2 years, I literally spent my time drinking, smoking, partying. It was just me looking for some kind of escape from all the pain that I had been through in my life. It's been a constant escape. So whether I was in school, whether I was in relationships, it didn't matter. I was constantly trying to escape that pain. And so being in this relationship with Kelsey, when we first started dating, it was, basically it was, hey, you got to do something, because there's a lot of pain here that's not being dealt with. And so the relationship wasn't going in the right direction, obviously, because you have all these issues coming out. They're sort of manifesting in ways that you could never have imagined. So yeah, your question was about school, but I'm sort of just generally talking about the time and, the after period of what had happened. And yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question about school.
Yeah, absolutely, because you mentioned that you went to university, and I can just express my immense respect for you that you had this resilience to go, not that university is the goal we all have to achieve, but what you have been through to know that you can focus on your books and push your way through university is a huge accomplishment, I find, because you must have felt in survival mode and escape mode all the time, but somehow you managed to did you finished your degree? No, you graduated completely.
Surprisingly, for sure.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it wasn't ever in my sort of the cards, I thought, for me, in terms of going back to school and getting a degree. I could have never imagined pursuing something. But the program here in Lethbridge, the addictions counseling program, probably saved my life, for sure. Yeah. I always say that it wasn't the education that I necessarily got, it was the personal growth that I walked away with.
Well, you were open to it.
Initially, no. So I went to school, I knew everything about addiction because I had been through it. Yeah. I was very stuck in just this ego, mindset of, I know everything, nobody can teach me anything, people don't change, I'm gonna be the same person forever. What I've been through is my story, and I was very clung to this idea that I was a victim, that I had suffered all of this stuff, that I had lost both my parents to their own addictions and their own issues, and that I was just going to sort of play that out because that was in the cards for me. That was my genetic makeup. That was my story. So I'm trying to go back now and break through a lot of these labels and just structures that I've put in place for myself. As like you said, survival. They're self-protection mechanisms. They're the ego's there in place to create stories so that, the defenses are there to protect yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So I had a lot of those structures in place. I joke often that I wore a lot of masks
Yeah.
hide because I was very afraid. And
it must have blocked you off of beautiful feelings as well, no? I mean, I'm sure you look great, you look handsome, you had a lot of like girls who wanted to be with you, but real love was also not able to penetrate your walls, right?
I'm still fighting for that.
Yeah.
I'm still fighting to feel love.
Yeah, to
and
feel
to give
worthy.
love. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for me it's the same. Like to keep the heart open is a constant muscle training.
Yeah. My counselor joked with me, not even joked, like I joke about it now, but being in that counseling session, she asked me where physically did I envision my heart. You know, I have my eyes closed and she's doing EMDR, tapping on my knees, and like trauma therapy, right? I'm sort of reliving all this stuff. And she just happened to, Aaron, where is your heart? And I was like, okay, like in my head I sort of pictured it being on a gurney in a mortuary in the basement, outside of my body, just barely sort of, you know, pumping kind of thing. And she was like, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was still doing like a lot of just and I still have a lot of work to do, but I had an opportunity to go and do this work. So seeing my heart outside of my body on a table, that imagery in terms of like the optics of everything, it really put things into perspective of what you're saying. I was so unable to feel love, to know that I was worthy, and then in return I was never able to love. To talk about women and having, you know, people chase or to chase you around, well, that was my existence, right? I was looking for love in relationships by pursuing women, sex, you know, the gratification of just meaningless things in my life. Mm-hmm, so drugs, alcohol, sex, name it, right? I've done it. I've gambled, I've had shopping addictions, there's just so many possibilities in terms of escapes. Women were just another part of that for me. So I've done everything possible to avoid actually coming down to doing the work and going back to the root of all of this. And it's either fear or love, and I was living in fear for well, I probably still am in a lot of ways, but I'm now actively aware of those patterns going on in my life, and I'm trying. I really am. So my work with other people, I remind them of the things that I'm likely doing for myself. So a lot of my work isn't because I'm some well-studied person. I do like to read and inform myself on this stuff. That doesn't make me a scientist or whatever, but I think a lot of it is just because I've either done it myself or I'm currently still working these things into my life. So that's just the truth. For sure.
So you've been with your girlfriend, your current girlfriend, Kelsey, for quite a while now.
Yeah.
A couple of years?
It's going on 7.
Yeah, going on 7. Would you be able by now to tell me what your definition of love is? Because I understand that maybe until you met her, love for you was, like, how was your brain conditioned for love?
Yeah.
Because, okay, what you received from your parents, that's what we think is love, right? There's no way around. That's where we get the food from, the shelter, and this is how we understand love. And how did you change it? How did you, like, what is love for you today, and how?
Yeah.
What was the
transition?
The transition, yeah. Was it with Kelsey or was it before?
No, it honestly, you nail it on the head. It was during our relationship early on, and there were so many issues and a lot of anger from my end, just because that's how it was manifesting. All of the ego and the things that I had to sort of put in place to create this identity and this narrative for myself. Anytime I would be challenged on something, it would trigger anger. I had to constantly be in a defense mode, and so that came out very early on in our relationship, as it would have. You're not gonna, the honeymoon phase was over pretty quickly, and then it was, you really start to see somebody for who they truly are. Not that that's truly who I am, but that's where I was in that moment. And so it was an ultimatum. Like, I'm not gonna be in this relationship with you, if you're not willing to work on yourself. And as I had mentioned in my previous relationship, I was very much, just of the mentality or the mindset that people didn't change. That I wasn't going to change, that I was sort of stuck with this predisposition of like, this is my heritage, where I come from, this is my lineage, my genes. Yeah. Sorry, this is you accept it or
not.
Yeah, my way or the highway kind of thing. Yeah. And basically it ended up with me being in the addictions counseling program, going to school to eventually want to help somebody to change, but being unwilling myself to bring that change into my life. And I was faced with some real moments at school. People confronted me and basically said that I wasn't ever going to live up to my potential because I was so afraid of coming out from behind the shell of the fragile human I was. And so this professor had challenged me that day in front of all my peers and sort of said, yeah, I don't really care. I don't know if I can swear, but he's like, you're wasting your life, Aaron. You have a potential to help people, to help yourself first and foremost, but you're not willing to do that. You're going to sit here and cross your arms and think you know everything when, I don't think you do. And that was sort of the moment, along with the relationship stuff, that I was like, oh, okay, like I got to go back and take a look at some things. And that's when I started, literally with my hoodie up, my anxiety-ridden self, walked into the counseling department at the university and, signed up just in private, totally in fear of being judged, and had no idea what counseling truly was until I went through it.
Yeah.
And so, I began the process of doing EMDR, which is just a trauma therapy that sort of reworks a lot of previous trauma and these experiences that have sort of lodged themselves in your psyche, and sort of just started to break through some of those things. So love actually wasn't one of the main things that I worked on right away. That's sort of just a recent discovery for me with my dad. Sort of sitting there going, oh my goodness, I had a real father. He probably really did love me. He probably held me. He probably looked at me with pure nurturance, care, love, affection, all of these things. But I had never associated those two things together. So I'm just recently putting this stuff back together, this puzzle. So but it's been 6 years. I don't know, 6, almost the whole entirety of our relationship. And it hasn't always been easy, Things come up, or you hit a low and depression sets in. My mental health issues are very real. And I struggle with anxiety. I feel like sometimes I'm bipolar because I'm just either manic or depressive, and I fall on either end of the spectrum, and it's highs and lows for me. So, but the saving grace in all of it is that I know that those are deeply connected to my childhood, and that's what allows me to give myself compassion, non-judgment, acceptance, and love, because that's what I give to other people, right? I want somebody to know that this wasn't their fault, that they weren't born broken, right? There's nothing wrong with you.
No.
Sort of as you started. So, it's been, and it's not done. Like, the journey isn't done. Like, I have so much work to do personally for myself. It's never ending. I don't think it ever will be. That's a good thing.
Oh, I think it's a great thing.
I don't want to get to a place again and be like, all right, I'm done the work and now I figured it out, right?
No, as soon as you sit back and think you've done it, then, I don't know, either life will hit you and prove you wrong, or people who love you will turn away because you're not open to grow further, and we can always grow, I find, and expand. Wow, that's really... beautiful, everything you shared so far. And
thank you.
I'm sure we can help a lot of people out there who have been through the same or are in love with a person who is going through the same stuff. And yeah, thank you so much again.
Hey, no, my challenge to anybody is to take a look at what things are coming up for you over and over and over again, those patterns that are persistent in your life. And they'll be obvious with some observation and awareness. If you sit with something long enough, it'll come clear. You know, and it's not people's faults. It's because of the environments we've been in and the things that have shaped us. So we can work to undo those things and rewire our brains and build relationships, connection, you know, solid foundational things, and have love.
Yeah.
Because without it, there's nothing else.
Yeah. Like in my past couple of years, I struggled with immense hate against humans in general.
Sure.
I might not come across as a person who hates other people, but that was my reality. I was hiding it really well behind a thick mask. Did you, like at some point, or still, do you get angry at people and just think, oh my god, this is all so stupid and we're running against this wall and no one seems to be caring? And
sure, yeah. Absolutely.
How do you soothe yourself or help yourself in those moments? Like, I learned to force myself to see people through eyes of compassion and always look for similarities, always look for the good, to the point that it's detrimental, because some people are more like they have bad intentions, but most of us are inherently good, but they just carry this ego wall around them and hurt other people because they feel heard. How was it for you? How did you learn to make peace with humans and even are able to help them now?
Well, first I had to make peace with myself.
Yes. Okay.
I was so destructive in my own... I was told not to hit the table. I just messed everything up. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, I had to make peace with myself. So the only reason I'm able to understand somebody so deeply, not because I know who they are, what they've been through necessarily. Everyone has different stories and come from different places. But I had to first go back and look at myself in some of the most just difficult things about my being. You talk about hating people. I probably would have been one of those people that you truly dislike because of just my actions, my behaviors, the toxic energy that was just spewing out of me. So
you know what? Sorry to interrupt. But
no.
If I would have known you back then, I would have probably thought, oh my God, he's doing all these things that I would love to do, but I'm not doing it because I'm too scared to hurt my mom or like someone who cares about me.
Yeah.
But I would have been like, oh, I feel like, being an addict and hurting myself even more than I did. And so how did you get out of this?
Well, that's what it is. And so you start to look at yourself so deeply to the point that you start to bring in compassion and not judging yourself. You know, I had addiction issues. I still struggle with addiction issues. I still cope with behaviors, you know, video games or smoking marijuana. Now that it's legal, it's one of those things that I can come home and use as a sort of crutch still. And so I'm fighting with this idea of like, you know, is it helping me in any way, or is it hindering me in terms of my growth? Is it my ceiling? Have I hit my potential? And do I need to now do something different, right? So that's what it is for me, is I understand those things so deeply for myself now, where I come from, the trauma that I was exposed to. You know, Kelsey brought over this paper about how did my mom die. Like that could be an episode just in and of itself, like the unpacking I had to do, when I found my mom and seeing
How
her.
old?
I was 9 years old when I found my mom. So I was living with her after my father passed away, and she continued to drink and use drugs, and it was just the worst thing I could possibly think of, and a lot of the people that I have an opportunity to work with, they have stories far beyond the experience I've had. That doesn't, I'm not minimizing what I've been through, but that's to say that these things are really going on for people, and I think that's why you see a lot of disdain for those struggling with addiction issues, because people don't really get what's going on. They would look at me, as you did in the beginning, and said, you seem confident, you appear to have these things in place, and yet inside I still feel as fragile and weak and sort of just shaken by all of it, and still trying to put it together. I'm this fragile, sort of glued together piece of some kind of ornament or something, right? But I think that's honestly where we need to start the conversation, in terms of really seeing people and understanding that these experiences they went through, the things that we've been through as humans, after however many years you've been on this earth, I don't care who you are, you got some things to unpack, and that's just the truth. So after being a 9-year-old child, finding your mom dead in your own bed, that was obviously one of the hardest moments of my life.
You were by yourself?
My little sister was in the house, and she was crying, so I went and fed her, and I came back into my room, and you sort of take it in, and the imagery will never ever leave me in terms of what I saw that day and went through, and it's everything about it. I wrote, I just recently got a box full of souvenirs, and I read this diary that I wrote to myself when I was 9. Actually, I wrote it to my mom, and I was just so scared, so afraid. I was just processing. It's interesting to see this 9-year-old child, do all this work of just please give me some kind of answer, because I don't know how I'm gonna make it through this. I'm terrified. I'm now just hypochondriac, because I think I'm gonna die, because I keep watching these people drop around me. The way my mom passed was she was just continuously using and drinking, and she was internally bleeding, and I think she knew that, but she didn't allow me to call the ambulance. She didn't want to go anywhere. She sort of just slowly died in front of me. And if you want to talk about why I was unable to love and to receive love, that's the moment that changed everything for me as a child. Everything before then was as stressful as they come, but that moment for me really reinforced everything that had led up to that point. For me, it was, I'm never going to put my heart out ever again to be vulnerable and to trust anyone, because look what happens. This person said they loved me, and look what they did to me. They just died in front of me. And they could have helped themselves, and I blamed myself for that up until I went and did all that work. And so a part of the therapy that I did was forgiving myself for things that were never mine to take on in the first place. But I had to forgive and to move past them in ways that was kid, this was never yours to take. And now that I'm an adult, it's pretty incredible to think back on the person that went through all of those things, just a child. So when I talk to people who've had experiences, trauma, abuse, neglect, all of it, not for 1 second do I minimize those things, and I try to tell them that, look, they'll often say, I'm just an addict, or I'm just this. They've been labeled as a bad person, somebody with no self-control, somebody who should be better and do better. I'm
you're not enough.
Come on. We're telling some of the most broken people, including myself. I believe these things about myself so deeply that it just reinforces the shame over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so that's what that work is. It's about freeing this resentment and the hatred you have towards yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So you talk about hating other people. I think that's because we have a deep reflection of the hatred we have towards ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
I can definitely see that.
So, I don't know if any of that made sense, but...
Oh, so much. And I hope you go back in time really, really often and take this 9-year-old Aaron into your arms and tell him that he's fine now and no one is ever going to hurt him again like this.
That's the work.
Yeah.
That honestly was part of the journey. It was, Aaron, I want you to bring in 9-year-old Aaron right now, and I want you to hold him.
Yeah.
And I just lost it. That was the moment everything changed for me.
Yeah.
She had me, my counselor had me sit and visualize with my eyes closed as she's tapping on my knees. EMDR, you can look it up, it's really cool. And she brought in little 9-year-old me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was there, because when that first happened, it was just the little kid, right? But this time I was there, and we sort of got to relive this experience and tell 9-year-old me that everything was going to be okay. None of this was your fault, and you didn't deserve any of this, but I'm here now, and I got you, right?
Yes.
And so that, I can, you know when you have a cry come on, you feel it in your throat, and you get the Adam's apple thing, and you're like, oh, I'm going to cry.
Yes.
I was sitting there, felt none of those things in terms of like physiologically having any kind of changes come up.
Mm-hmm.
It literally was like exorcising the demons out of me. Like it just came out, and that was it. I remember coming home and being like, something has, and I picture it as like dislodging just toxic weight, you know?
Yeah.
So I came home lighter that day.
Oh, that's so nice.
For sure. So, I don't know. The addictions counseling program at the university, it changed my life for the better. I got an education out of it. I can now help people.
Yeah, you have
hopefully.
a purpose. Oh, yeah. I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, our counselor truly is a wizard. Hi, Tanya. I love you. Thank you.
I love you too. I love you too.
I don't know if you'll ever watch this, but you're a good person.
She seems like a wonderful person, yeah.
Yeah, truly.
If you... Okay, why is it beauty? I don't know, beauty. Because beauty I find is such a interesting word nowadays, because we all have that image, like maybe for Kelsey and for you right away, beauty is like this.
Sure.
Like, do you have a direct association? And what is beauty for you now in terms of a happy place, a good place, a warm place, a loving place? Where do you see and feel that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Beauty before probably came from places that were pretty shallow in terms of just like
Escape.
false, sort of escape routes and drugs, women, all the things we mentioned before that most people try. I tried probably every single one of them, came back and was like, I still haven't found beauty or love or self-love or the thing that I'm looking for, happiness. People seem to be on this search, right? They're constantly looking for something, and I was too. And then, throughout all of these shifts and transitions that I've sort of been able to process through and have come up in my life, you start to see beauty as just deep gratitude for the things that you have, the people that you have, the relationships. I look at my dogs differently now. Like, I wasn't even able to love my dogs the way I'm able to love them now,
Yeah, I can see that.
It's crazy, but, most people are like, that's such a weird thing to say, but
no.
Beauty to me is just taking a deep breath and understanding that you're pretty much connected to not pretty much, you are connected to everything, to the people around you, to the things and, the trees, the sights, the sounds, the smells, all of it.
Mm-hmm. But you can also only experience that when you're not in survival mode anymore, no?
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So people are fighting to just survive in the ego, in the voice telling them that they're not good enough. You're not gonna be able to see these things. You're not gonna be open to them because you're in survival mode, like you say. You're gonna be fighting for something completely different. Mm-hmm. Now that my time's freed up, more or less, I'm still struggling with a lot of things. That's human life. That's realistic to say. But now that I have some freedom, some of that weight dislodged, I have an ability now to sort of work on myself more deeply through things like yoga and meditation, and that's been 2 years of my life that, again, I'm just so grateful for, because I went into yoga kicking and screaming with this idea of what it was and what it meant to be vulnerable in a space with other people, and there was just no way that I would have ever stepped into something like that. Just never. Like, my ego would have been so strong, the identity, this image of myself. Aaron was too cool for school to ever do yoga. Like, such a hardened shell. And yoga has a way of sort of doing a lot of the work I got to do in therapy. I think yoga has a lot of that same potential. And so I use it now probably less than I should, just because of how busy I am with work and life, and those are excuses, but it's something that I shouldn't miss. And I know when I do that I wish I would have went, you know, because you have an opportunity to be on your mat, to just sort of leave things that are coming up, to check in with the voice that's running your life, and to go, I'm not this voice, I'm not this thing.
Yeah.
This isn't who I am. And, you know, even though I've gone through all the therapy and all the exercising the demons, that voice still comes up, and it still tells me I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough counselor, I'm not a good enough partner, I'm not a good enough human. So you have to sort of continuously check in and go, well, I'm not going to listen to you.
Good.
Right?
Yeah, because your partner cannot be, cannot give you this approval all the time, right?
Totally.
You have to know it for yourself. Otherwise, they're trying to fill a hole that is...
it's a black hole.
Yeah.
It's a bottomless pit. You can toss all the love and the affection and everything into something that it's an abyss. That's what addiction, mental health, that's what all of this is so connected to. The fact that I do yoga and meditate now and went to the program and worked on myself in these ways, I'm starting to now see that all of these things are so connected. This journey isn't separate from each other. They're so connected that it's hard to have any doubt about what you're doing, right? So I completely agree with what you're saying. And it's only, I don't know, it's only through this process and journey that I've been able to see that. So I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for the people that pushed me and challenged me and gave me a nudge when I needed, or sort of reined me in when I was...
That's the hardest thing to do when you watch someone in pain, to tell them do you actually see what you're doing to yourself because you're scared of being rejected. It takes a lot of courage to... Because it, sometimes comes across as criticizing, or you're trying to take away my protective mechanism, and I cannot let go of this, otherwise I'm gonna die.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
This is that's, you want to strip everything away and understand people more fully. That's what's going on for people, and it's controlled deeply by the mind, and we're affiliated, or I don't know what the word is I'm trying to find here, but we're so rooted in that. We think that this thing that's sort of running nonstop is us. We think it's our voice. And it's interesting because I challenged someone recently about, okay, so if you observed that voice, who was talking and who did the observing?
Yes.
Right? And this person was like, holy shit, like I've never had that split before where I could kind of see.
Yes.
And yeah, it was a really, really cool moment. So I'm having more of those for myself, and that's what a lot of my work with people is just, let's take a look at what the mind's telling us. What is it saying about you? What does it say about the people around you, about your experiences?
And is it true, or is it just, your ego trying to protect you from something?
Yeah. I used to be a different person, and I mean that, you talk about masks. That's what it was. It was, I had a different story. I had an alter ego. That's what it is, right? I had this persona. I made up a story about who I was as a person, and I had all these things, and I was very privileged, and it was a way to bring people in. It was a pretty weak sort of attempt at gaining, friendships and connections and relationships in my life, but it literally was to survive, because I was just like head just above water. So what does the ego do? It creates a false narrative for you, and you're like, cool, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And now I've had to strip all of those things away, toss them out, and go, who is Aaron?
Yeah.
Who is this person really?
Yeah.
And what is he all about? So that's my journey now. I'm trying to be as real as I possibly can with myself and the people around me.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. When you talk about reflecting about the thoughts you have, that you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, and you're not your body, it helps you to realize how you react in certain situations, and how to, in the future, change your responsibility. Right?
Yeah.
You feel responsible first, but then you also know that in the future, if I do that quick check, this is my ego reacting, this is my fear kicking in, or this is something else, then you will see that you react differently in situations or with people, and you can dramatically change your relationships and the way you see people.
Yeah. And how you see yourself.
And how you see yourself.
Those environments and relationships.
Yeah.
100%.
Did you read, like, outside of university, did you read any books that really changed your life? Or are you not a reader at all?
No, I totally am.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was the book that?
The first book that I read that really changed things was The Power of Now, Eggert, for sure.
I love this guy.
That sort of blew my mind right off the bat, and like I've read it a couple times just to try to take it all in.
Yeah.
I think it's a very simplistic sort of idea. Like
I was gonna say.
It really is, but then it's very complex all at the same time.
Yeah.
And people try to grasp it through the mind, which ends up being a trap in and of itself, right? So we try to understand these things with our intellect, with the mind. And you think that you're doing all this work, but it's not as authentic as I thought, because it just turned out to be another journey with some outcome that I was going to be enlightened, somewhere along the way, that I was going to be this awesome person. Yeah, that's not the case, and so you just take a step back and you keep reading, keep pushing yourself. But that book, currently reading The Unfolding Now by A.H. Almaas.
Okay.
I believe his name is. I came up lots in school, so I'm checking it out. But it's all very much connected to, these spiritual teachings and just old traditions that, have been around forever. But our society doesn't have time for these kinds of things, to sit and breathe and meditate and be with your thoughts. And, our mind we have a thought. Our body reacts to that thought. We have an emotional response, which is the emotions and behaviors things that come out afterwards. And these teachings have taught me to be able to sit with those things that are coming up. Sitting here with you just in the beginning, very anxious, nervous. Okay, just breathe, man. Like, just find your breath, connect to that. You're okay. You're not dying, right? So I just go back to my breath, and that's because of yoga and meditation. Like,
yeah, and because you allow it.
I was like, this is crazy stuff, but it really does. It's impacted my life for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it's 7:34 already, but I still have a question.
Sure. I have an answer, maybe.
You sure have. You better have one, because Do you think that you're still in a healthy relationship with Kelsey because she was able to cut through your bullshit?
Wow, yeah. I think we're healthier more now than ever.
Okay.
And she really was able to cut through her bullshit.
Her own too? And yours?
Well, yeah.
But yours too? Because you were not like...
Initially it was... What are you laughing at? No, initially it was like, Aaron, you gotta go do something with this, right? And I think since then we've we've taken our relationship, and individually we've taken ourselves to the next level. She's gone and done the work that I've pushed myself to do. She's challenged herself to go into therapy and look at the patterns that are so deeply rooted for her. So I think just as individuals, we've continued to rise above our last shell. We're just sort of shedding these layers, and we're getting down to the true selves. And we went and saw the same counselor that we did individually together as a couple. And she did a lot of the Gottman style couples therapy with us, the four horsemen, the criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. And you sort of start to see the patterns of defense mechanisms you play out in your relationships. And so for me, it's very much defensiveness. It's very much stonewalling. I just check out, right? I'm not going to hear any of this. I'm in self-protection mode, right? Throwing up the wall. And for Kelsey, it was, maybe more so criticism or contempt or the other side. So we really were split in terms of the things that we used against each other. This little arsenal of, like jabs that we all know what that's like when you're in with your partner or whatever relationship. It doesn't even have to be your partner romantically. It can be any person you're interacting with. And these things come up all the time. So in our relationship, it's changed the communication style. We literally turn towards each other, which is one of the factors that you want to bring in. But we listen to each other. The person's needs completely outside of your own. So you take your stuff out of it, and this is not easy stuff to do. Like, I'll get caught in defensiveness, protecting myself, and then it's like, okay, I just need to sit and listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
What are your needs? What are you telling me right now? And can I listen to those? Can I respect them? Can I, love you in the way that you need? And those things have changed everything. Like, we were, like any relationship, 6 years in, there's difficulties, and you're at each other sometimes, and you're like, this isn't what we set out to do. Like, it's not what we signed up for. Why are we doing this to each other? And I don't think it's because we wanted to. It was just after 6 years, you start to build resentments and the little things and regular human stuff. But yeah, I can't imagine not having gone through that now. Like, it's changed everything in our relationship and in every relationship that I just people. It helps in my counseling style. Just getting people to challenge themselves too, and to push them light ways. And right, sometimes friends talk about their bickerings, and you just toss in a little Gottman stuff that you learned because you went through it, and they're like, oh, what the hell's this guy talking about? But it's fun because it's really changed everything for sure. I don't know. I'm grateful. Thank you again, Tanya. Thank you. Everybody find yourself a Tanya, because I'm supposed to look at this camera, not that one. No, I'm so sorry.
Find yourself a Tanya.
Go get a Tanya.
Okay, very last question now.
Sure.
Why did she make it through to your heart?
Who?
Kelsey.
Why did Kelsey make it through to my heart?
Yeah.
Only because I finally allowed myself to open that door.
Good.
Right?
Unconditional love.
That's true, though. Like, I was never willing. The heart was outside of my body on a separate table in a frickin' mortuary. Like, you can't get any creepier than that, right? And so I took my heart, I put it back in my body, and was like, I'm gonna trust again. I'm gonna trust that somebody isn't gonna die in front of me and leave me on this planet because their suffering is so great. I don't blame my mom anymore for those things. She was struggling on her own, but honestly, it's just an ability to go, wow, people did love me. I was adopted. They loved me. They put me through hockey. They taught me. I got a second chance at 9 years old, right? So there was so much love, yet I never really saw any of that because it was just riddled with all of the extra shit that I had been through, right? So for Kelsey now, it's the reason I'm able to let her in is because I literally have opened the door. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust you. Yeah. So.
I can see why you did that.
Yeah, of course. No, and honestly, she has been there through all of it. Like, for somebody to stand by, in terms of people going through addiction, all my mental health issues that I currently struggle with, The fact that she stood by through all of it and continues to, that to me teaches me that people are really loving, and they're not going to just get up and leave or die when things get tough. Like Kelsey hasn't left, and I don't think she will. Right? I believe that. I truly do. I trust that she loves me unconditionally and accepts me for who I am, and that is one of the greatest lessons ever. So it allows me to love myself unconditionally.
Yeah.
Because I'm worth it, and I'm a good person.
Yes, you are.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Kelsey, thank you so much for being our cheerleader there.
Thanks.
And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we could help a couple people out there. And yeah, have a wonderful weekend. And see you again next week. Bye-bye.